Hey.
Welcome to the Biz Boyz broadcast. My name is Mason.
My name is Ross.
We're going to try to do a sequence in our broadcast just to keep it organized and structured so you can expect, or you know what to expect for each video. We're going to try to have it displayed out here in front of you so you can kind of follow along in the discussion. We're going to try to hit these three main points in each of our broadcasts. Like we said, or like this tablet says, laptop, tablet, device, modern device says here, we're going to try to hit current events. We're going to try to bring a current event every week just to talk about it and try to relate it to maybe some business things that we have in our heads and our noggins. Then we're going to talk about, I think the second one was Barry Wi-Fi status update, if I remember correctly.
Indeed.
That was the second one. And that's just one of our businesses, or our only business that we're running right now. If we have more, then we'll talk about the other ones, but right now it's just Barry Wi-Fi. And then not on that right now that we came up with in the last minute is business ideas. So we'll fix that for next week's broadcast, but we'll also talk about business ideas. We'll present one business idea each week, and we'll kind of talk about it and go through what I've learned the best way to go through an initial business idea and how to structure it and make sense of it and see if it's a good viable idea for a business. For those of you who already know, my main strategy for that is business canvas model, but we'll go into that later. And then finally, the business lesson of the week. Whatever the heck we learned that week, or whatever heck we think that is an important lesson to learn, we're going to share it at the broadcast and share some insight and things that we learned. I think that's actually how we structured it. Okay.
Yeah. I think most of today's lesson, today's broadcast is talking about acquisitions. So
it's true.
The current events are both acquisitions, and we're talking about client acquisition in our Barry update. So
it's almost like we planned it.
Almost.
We didn't, but it's almost like we did. All right. So do you want to start with your current event?
Sure. So I was reading up on just technology articles, and Apple is acquiring a small company for marketing. It's software tools that use some sort of artificial intelligence to market other software things, software and online services. So Apple's starting its video streaming platform pretty soon, and they've also got a lot of other online services, and they're looking for better ways to market that. So they acquired a small company called Data Tiger.
Who are they?
Data Tiger is based in London, and their LinkedIn page says they're only between 2 and 10 employees. So they're a really small company, but apparently they've done a significant amount of work, so much that Apple's interested in buying them, and has actually already signed the contract to purchase them. So.
And what did you say? Why was Apple doing this?
Apple's doing it to use their AI marketing tools to help them market their online services. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
I just like the idea that just a few people can start up a business and then be acquired by some large company for what I can only assume is a large sum of money.
Is that all you think about, Russ, is a large sum of money?
I do think of large sums of money very often.
Good.
Yeah.
That's why we're good business partners. That's what I think about too. The money. No. It's about life and learning. Okay.
Apple's one of the biggest value creators in our current society. I mean, so many people have iPhones and use Apple products. It's changed the lives of everybody. So I think it speaks to those few people that started Data Tiger that they've been able to create something with enough value that Apple is going to use them.
Yeah, I wonder what's the latest news on that? When did that start, and that overall, is this recent news kind of thing?
I can bring up the article here. Let's see. So Data Tiger was founded in 2017, and Apple's planning to launch its product in April. But this article was posted a couple days ago. So it's
that is rapid. That is rapid from development to acquisition.
Yeah,
God,
definitely.
That's the dream. That's a dream as most business owners. I've known many different types of business owners. And I find that some people are focused on building a business, creating value, and then instantly liquidating that value into money, essentially selling it or being acquired. Some people want to never even think about that, and they just want to keep their business going, which I find is both equally valid motivations for building and driving a business.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 2017 to early 2019. Did they say what month in 2017? Just said founded in 2017.
No, that's fine. It's kind of like our Barry Wi-Fi. We're founded in 2018. Who knows really the month?
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's 2018. It couldn't have been more than 2 years. They went from nothing to being acquired by Apple.
Interesting. Okay, so I'd ask you a general question, but
Yeah.
I'm going to go to my current event first before I ask.
All right.
I hope these squeaky chairs aren't going to pick up on the mics. That's going to be.
Oh, it will.
That's
It
gonna
will.
Be, that's going to be unfortunate.
You get all the squeakiness.
Yeah, and for you guys for watching at home, last week's video, if you even ever see that video, it got cut off around 12 minutes, and it may have gone to some beautiful scenery and audio. That's because this camera right here can only record 12 minutes at a time. It's a great feature, might I add. I'm really glad that they thought into that.
Well, we're now running at 9:40, so we only have a little over 2 minutes left on this recording.
Oh, God. So you may see some jump cuts. The idea is for this to be a continuous stream of thought without editing too much, but there will be jumps at times, just so you know. But anyway, so my current event of the week is acquisitions, like you said before, but it's two big firms, or companies, I guess you could say, T-Mobile and Sprint. So this has been an acquisition that's been under the spotlight, I guess you could say, for a couple years now, actually. I think somebody said it started, or an article read that it started 4 years ago, but really it gained traction about I think it was mid-2018, when the two companies finally decided to agree to merge, or at least send out a plan to merge. And for those of you who aren't really familiar with how mergers and acquisitions work, especially two big companies, it's like everything else in this country is federally regulated through antitrust laws. So the government looks at a thing like that, a merger like that, and it tries to figure out, hey, is this going to be better or worse for consumers of the product? And in this case, T-Mobile and Sprint is, as you know, wireless carriers, essentially, internet and phone capabilities. Now, backing up, the main reason for this merger was that T-Mobile and Sprint wanted to give the consumers a third major wireless developer. As you know now, there's Amazon and, or not Amazon, sorry, AT&T and Verizon.
Maybe Amazon will have its own service someday. But
Amazon will do a lot of things.
does everything else, why not?
The whole intent was to create a third option for the consumers, because if you look at the market, Verizon and AT&T are huge leaders in this wireless telecom market, and the new latest technology that's going to be rolling out is 5G. So 5G 5G signal band is going to be hugely beneficial, and they say the difference from 4G to 5G, if I remember correctly, it was as big as a gap of like, I think it was 3G. No, I think it was bigger than the gap from 3G to 4G. I can't remember what the analogy was, but it's significantly bigger jump than any other band of G.
I'm excited.
Yes.
Haven't seen any examples of what it's going to do for me. I use Project Fi. Google. Well, now it's Google Fi. It used to be Project Fi. So Google uses Wi-Fi, T-Mobile, and Sprint, and picks whatever is the strongest service around you to provide your cell service.
Not gonna last. It's gonna suck. It's not gonna last.
And if T-Mobile and Sprint merge, then it'll be like just whatever company that will be plus your Wi-Fi. It'd be interesting if Google just acquired whatever company this is going to become at some point, and then it just becomes Google's cell service.
No, so I don't think T-Mobile and Sprint's going to do that. Their main goal of this merger is to become one big company to fend off companies like Verizon and AT&T and provide a third option to the consumer. Now, like I was saying before, the government is trying to, and I think they're currently still doing that. Excuse me. Yeah, pick that up on the mic there. The government is still trying to assess whether this is a good merger or a bad merger for the consumer. And this leads me to my general question of the week, Russ. Do you think mergers and acquisitions in a federally regulated environment is a good thing?
Wow, we're jumping straight to the politics now, are we?
No. This is not politics. Politics is
it's politics with business. You know?
This is strictly.
It's not like we're talking about the wall. It's a different conversation entirely.
Don't bring up the wall, Russ. People don't like it when we talk about the wall. Don't bring up the wall.
Okay, so we're talking about antitrust laws which shouldn't exist. Okay.
The question is, do you think they shouldn't exist? Do you think this should be federally unregulated?
Yeah. I mean, I have no problem with any two businesses which are independent entities agreeing to merge their resources and become one entity, one company. It's just a bunch of people in two parties, and they're agreeing to work together rather than separately. I don't see the problem with that. The other, and people would say maybe that's going to create an oligopoly and hurt the consumers. But there are a lot of other rich people that have access to purchasing the same kind of resources and starting their own company. So if two big companies were going to try to merge and then raise prices ridiculously on the consumer, it wouldn't last very long because some other rich person would come in, create pretty much the same business and undercut them.
So I don't know if that's necessarily. I don't know if I would agree that would be the case for most places, for most markets. I think that there are a lot of markets, and I'm thinking back all the way to colonial times of the Hudson Bay Tea Company, where it was basically a company that was stronger than any government or country. Okay. It was a company that literally had its own militia and military, and it was
smart people.
Well, it was a successful business for sure, if you deem monopolies successful, which I'm sure the guy who owns the business would. But it was very, very difficult for any independent person, no matter how rich, to be able to amass the resources and all of the time and experience that that company has invested for that market. So though I agree with I agree with the fact that it maybe seems like it can be done. I think there's a lot of other factors other than money that weigh into it. I don't think it's just a rich guy.
Yeah. No, the customers would have to be experiencing the existing monopoly would have to be giving a bad enough service or raising the prices too far above market price for it to make it reasonable for another rich person or somebody to come in and do all the work that business has already done to gain all those resources and experience.
What is market price? Isn't market price whatever determines the suppliers determine the market or the price is? So there is an aspect of supply and demand. A person is usually only willing to pay for something for so much. Yeah. But that's only because they have a reference to something else.
Yeah, the market price is kind of a arbitrary term when you look at it, because consumers will be willing to pay very different prices for the same product with two different companies based on brand and those kinds of things. So it's really hard to nail down what the market price should be. But it is just demand, like what customers are willing to pay for this product. But it gets complicated when you have to wrap in everything that involves that product, brand and quality and that kind of stuff, history.
And it gets complicated when you're talking about oligopolies or monopolies who essentially determine the market price. Yeah. Because they have such power over the consumer as being the only supplier, they can determine essentially the market price. Where ideally it's based off of demand and consumer.
Yeah, but if the consumers, there would be a limit to what consumers would be. Well, I guess there are inelastic goods that consumers wouldn't be willing to pay above. But if you get too far, then all that work and experience that monopoly or oligopoly has is worth something, and as soon as they raise prices too high, then somebody else can come in and undercut them. It just depends on the good and how high consumers are willing to pay before that happens.
Yeah, I won't argue that it definitely creates an opportunity for somebody to swoop in when a monopoly or oligopoly gets a little bit too carried away, I guess you could say, with raising their prices. Yeah. It does give opportunity for someone to undercut them. I just think it's very difficult to do that.
Yeah.
In some markets.
And it's not just prices. You can have bad service too. If some monopoly comes in, maybe they keep prices the same, but their service slacks off over time.
Yeah. Well, I could talk about this one for hours, to be honest. You could even talk about how there's been horizontal acquisitions where a certain person will buy a supplier and buy a distributor or acquire them just to have more control.
Yeah, what were the two magnates in the 1800s? Were Carnegie and
Rockefeller?
Rockefeller. One was Carnegie was steel, right?
Oh, Rockefeller was iron too.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And they're control.
I might be wrong.
Anyway, one was vertical and one was horizontal acquisitions.
Yeah, I prefer the vertical. If I'm thinking about this right, I think horizontal is basically buying competitors, and then vertical is buying different points in the supply chain.
It's like horizontal would be like if you owned the entire steel industry, so any product. Any product that used steel would have to go through you. Vertical would be if you owned every single portion of a product's development, so that you owned the entire product. You never had to go to anybody else to make a product.
Okay.
I think SpaceX was known for a lot of vertical.
It's logistics.
Vertical strategy because they build their rockets from like ground up.
It's logistics mostly. Most people want to buy a supplier, buy a distributor to control that. The logistics process much better. It's much easier when you own your piece of your company does the supplying and does the distributing rather than work with somebody else. It's more costly, but a lot of companies do that to control their.
I see nothing wrong. I definitely don't see anything wrong with the vertical. I mean, you can keep a tighter hold on the quality of your product. I think vertical a lot of times helps the consumer. Horizontal is kind of interesting just because you're kind of forcing everybody to go through you, but at the same time. If you can make the best quality steel for the lowest price, I don't see what the problem with that is.
This is my term. I'm afraid of square acquisition. You go one way and then you expand out the other way to make it a square. So a lot of people will start horizontally.
That's really even okay.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely possible. It would take time, but it's absolutely possible. What I would do first is I would actually buy vertical integration. So I'm making a perfect product and process in logistics, and then I would start buying my competitors. So it's almost like you're buying a block if you think of it from just a strictly horizontal or vertical and horizontal.
Yeah, I guess a lot of current tech companies could be seen like that. I think Google started out as a search engine and built all the search engine stuff that was required, and then now they're branching out into other services.
Yep. Yeah, okay, so that was the current event of the week, a bit about acquisitions and mergers. I'm actually taking a class on it right now, mostly about how to do valuations, how acquisitions have worked in history, because acquisitions is actually not very, there's actually, someone told me that acquisitions has only been a thing for about 50 years, and there's only about 10,000 cases of acquisition, which if you think about it is actually not that much.
Yeah. I would expect there would be a lot more.
No, yeah, there's only actually 10,000 recorded cases of acquisitions. Actually ones that went through the process. There's probably more people who announced it but never actually did anything with it. Yeah. But actually going through the process, it's about 10,000 cases of it, which is interesting. But anyway, moving on from there, we got our Berry Wi-Fi update. So
Berry Wi-Fi update.
I think if I remember correctly, we wanted to go a little bit of the phasing of how we're going to introduce Berry Wi-Fi to the market.
Yeah. So right now we're trying to find just a couple clients to test out the product that we have, this initial product, get the process down for having clients incoming so that we know all the steps and make that a smooth process. And then from there we'll launch a bigger digital marketing campaign and hopefully get a lot more clients through the internet. And hopefully we can do it all over the country, and so we can ship any routers we would need to, anything like that. So yeah, phase one is the refining the product process on onboarding clients. Phase two would be the digital marketing campaign and expansion and growing our client base. Phase three would be then adding capabilities to our product. So we've talked a little bit about what we want to add. The biggest thing being a POS system integration. So if maybe you saw the first video we recorded, maybe we never released it. I don't know, but
That's my joke.
um,
You can't steal my joke, Russ.
I can steal your joke. It's relevant. Berry Wi-Fi collects consumer data via guest Wi-Fi connections. So if you're at a cafe or something, if you log in via guest Wi-Fi, you're going to log in via social media, and then whatever's public on that social media profile is what the business gets collected. So overall, when there's 100 people that log in, they'll see an overview of who their customer is, so they have a better idea of how they're going to do marketing. So our phase one is right now trying to test our platform with a couple of clients. So we want to get a couple people to use it and to see and to try to refine our process in onboarding clients and what kind of things we need to have set up for bringing new clients in. And then once we have a good process set up, then we're going to start a big digital media campaign, so we can digital marketing campaign, so we can bring in a bunch of clients that way. Hopefully, hasn't worked yet, but we haven't put a lot of money into that yet.
It's hard.
It is hard, but yeah. Phase 2 would be expansion, client expansion, and then phase 3 is increasing their capability. So right now we're just collecting some data and giving it to the business, but the biggest integration we want to do is integrate with their POS systems, point of sale data, so that not only does the business have a picture of customer demographics who visits their store, but also what kind of things people order, so we can correlate it with different types of people order these types of things and that kind of stuff. So that would be a very powerful tool for businesses, and maybe even more than businesses, if we were able to have the rights to sell that data. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's a whole other thing.
Whole other thing. We're not there yet.
That. Yeah.
Anyway, so
I guess to summarize, phase 1, product and process refinement.
Yeah.
Phase 2, mass marketing.
Yep.
Phase 3, spend all of our money on a Bahama beach house. Is that how I heard it?
I don't know about the Bahamas.
What? What do you mean now you don't know about the Bahamas?
I don't know. I like Monaco.
Isn't that in the Bahamas?
What? It's in South France. Good try, though.
It's close. You want to go to France? God, I don't even wear deodorant over there. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I've already alienated.
We will have no French watchers from here on out.
I've already alienated an entire country by episode 2.
Yeah, great.
That's cool.
It might even be episode 1.
Oh man. Okay. So that's kind of a little bit of overview of Berry Wi-Fi. That's kind of how we structured it out. Yeah.
So in phase 1, we're trying to collect a couple clients. We're doing business to business sales, which is a type of selling that you have to do when you're selling to businesses rather than just normal consumers.
Whoa. Is that what that means?
Yeah, it is what that means. B2B. We found it's a lot more difficult than normal consumer sales, although I've never done consumer sales, so maybe that's also difficult. But if you...
I'd take any sales at this point.
But I don't know, if you have a cool T-shirt design or something and you can market it online, and if you post in the right place, anybody that thinks that's interesting can come along and buy it, and as long as you have a way to ship it, you can do that. With business-to-business sales, it's more difficult, we've found, because you have to find business owners and find their particular time when they're at their business thinking about marketing and that kind of stuff. It's not just people surfing the internet for cool stuff they want to buy. It's a business that doesn't know he needs this software tool that can help his business, and to get in contact with them is difficult. So we've tried digital marketing, so just Facebook and social media stuff, but it's hard to find the right social media niche where there's business owners. We've tried cold calling, just walking into businesses, but they have a big firewall of employees. So you'll find if you do any B2B sales, when you get into a restaurant or a cafe or wherever you're selling, the owner's not usually there, and all the employees are trained just to take your business card and send you on your way and say they'll forward it on to their owner. I have a feeling they never do.
Why is it called cold calling if you're there in person?
Because it used to be on the phone, and it still is. You can still cold call on the phone, but they still call.
That's a brain stumper.
I still hear people.
I love that video. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You had a great thought there, and I just ruined it. I derailed it. Continue.
Yeah. So business sales is difficult, and
so what
yeah.
how do you go about searching for the right businesses? So what do you have in mind for Barry Wi-Fi as the ideal business, and what are you shooting for?
There's no ideal business, but the one we're trying to start with is like cafes and coffee shops, because that's the people who are going to spend the most time on Wi-Fi, have the highest, not only the most time, but more the highest percentage of people that are going to log into Wi-Fi are probably going to be at coffee shops and cafes.
As opposed to like a clothing store.
As opposed to a clothing store.
I've never logged on to a Wi-Fi.
A lot of people log into Wi-Fi at gyms, so that would work, that kind of thing. Restaurants, bars. We were talking about laundromats.
I think we said museums, because I could see that museums are taking a more modern approach where they now have people log into their Wi-Fi and go to the website. They can do tours of the museum through the website. So that's just another avenue of Wi-Fi to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But cafes, I think, would benefit the most because of the percentage of people that log in. So that's what we're going to try to target first in our initial client acquisition.
And you said it hasn't worked too well so far, only because very difficult to find owners there at the business when you're arriving.
Yeah.
And whenever you speak to a cashier or manager, they probably just look at you and tear up your business card, almost in front of your face, it sounds like.
Yeah, pretty much. They kind of roll their eyes. Oh, another guy that's trying to sell something, right?
Yeah.
So I think unfortunately, we don't have a lot of these, but we're trying to find them. But the biggest thing is just contacts, like who you know, is really important. So we're trying to find, through our contacts, anybody who knows business owners that might be able to benefit from this. And so if you make the way through the channel, and they can be and so a business owner can hear it from somebody they already trust and know, that are recommending to use our platform, because right now it's free for testing. If we can get through those channels, I think business owners would be much more likely to trust it. And so I think that's the case with any business. When you're starting off, it's who you know that's really important.
Yeah, we made a breakthrough this week. So as part of the status update, we contacted, so I go to Loyola Marymount University for my MBA, and I contacted the Entrepreneurship Council here, which if you're a student who's trying to start a business, I highly recommend you leverage your college's resources. I'm sure that if you're going to a big university or a state college, that they absolutely have an entrepreneurship council of some kind in your business department for your college. And a lot of times they can help you by identifying points of contact or networking, get you connections of people who own businesses in that local area. If that's what you need, or whatever your business is, they can help you find it. So I highly recommend that as a student starting a business, you go and utilize your college, because that's what I just did. So I went through the Entrepreneurship Council, and I won't say any names or anything like that, but they gave us a couple points of contacts for people who own businesses that me and Russ could go bug the shit out of in order to sell our product for free.
Hey.
And we should probably say this now, neither of us are salesmen. We suck at selling. I've seen how he does it. It's abysmal. Really, he should be paying them to talk to them. So we're engineers by trade, so we're not very good at this, but we try our best, and we think that you really only learn through experience, and that really is the case for selling. You really just got to learn how to read people, what's the right way to sell, and things like that. But we got some point of contacts. We're probably maybe in the next week or so at least going to send some emails out to those people. Maybe you get to visit some of those businesses in the next week, and if we do, we'll give you an update in the next week. See how it goes. Maybe we're drinking champagne and drinking whiskey we've finally got somebody.
Yeah. I've heard that businesses are a little bit more open when you're a customer. So if you're talking to an owner in the place, a little more open if you're a customer. So far we have spent money on instead of getting them as a customer, we're their customers, and that's the only way it goes.
Yep.
Not the right way. Not the way we're trying to go.
No.
I buy their coffee. They say fuck off. Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it for Barry Wi-Fi update of the week. So we'll try to give you periodic updates for every week. Right now, it's basically we're just looking for clients for our free testing. So moving on to the next section that's not on the laptop, but will be next week, so apologies for that, but will be on the laptop next week, is business ideas. We're going to try to bring one business idea, kind of think about how to develop a business plan, which I am a huge believer that if it's not a good business idea, or if it's a good business idea, that you can develop a plan, a business plan within 10 or 20 minutes, because it's just so easy to build a plan off of a good idea. And if it's not a good idea, it just means you may want to think through it first, or think through it a little bit more before you invest time and money into it. We're going to try to propose a new business idea every week, and this week's business idea is
an RV speakeasy.
So what is a speakeasy, Russ?
Speakeasy is a bar that you aren't supposed to know about very easily, and it's you shouldn't really be able to look it up on like Google and know exactly where to go and what to do to get in. It's something that you usually hear about from a friend, and they give you some special way to get in. It's like a password kind of door. It came from like the 1920s when we had Prohibition, and you wanted to speak easy. You didn't want to blabber it all over town. It was just a place where people could drink alcohol, even though it was illegal. And they'd be like in basements, behind back walls of businesses. It's a speakeasy. So when you just had to know where it was. It was all who you knew. And so it's kind of the modern day. You can usually find them easier. You can like Google them and whatever. But if you're good, you have a special, something that makes you special, a little tactic and something that people have to know to get in and navigate. So some of them, I know one nearby. It's a bar and restaurant out front, but they put little slips of paper around with a phone number, and it's not labeled. It's just a slip of paper with a phone number, and you go in, you have to text the phone number, and then they give you a reservation time. But you have to know what those pieces of paper are for.
Interesting. And we just went to one recently last night called, what was it called? Slipper Clutch?
Slipper Clutch.
Yeah. That was a pretty interesting one. It was a bar behind a bar. Wasn't actually too hard to get into. Literally, you just go through a bar into a door that I guess you wouldn't necessarily think is a bar behind it.
It was an unlabeled door next to the bathrooms in like the back hallway. So
and it went to a bar that actually never even served us alcohol, but served us $20 sodas. So it was an interesting speakeasy. Probably not the best speakeasy, I would say.
No.
But the only other speakeasies we saw were crowded as hell because everybody knew where they were.
Yeah.
So, incoming our idea.
An RV speakeasy.
So how does that work, Russ?
So you would have to know from one of your friends, or how exactly you would hear about it. We're not sure, but the RV would park somewhere in Los Angeles or another city, and there would be a location. Maybe the location would stay constant, maybe it would move, but you'd have to know where to go, and you would onboard onto this RV, and then it would take you to a different location every week. It probably would be a weekly thing, something like that. And it would take you to up towards a good spot that overlooked the beach, and there would have to be really good bartenders that served special drinks on this RV, and it would move to places with really good. Thank you. No.
I'm sorry. Continue.
Yeah, so that's the idea. It's an RV that moves locations. It should. I'm guessing. I'm thinking the spot where where people get onto the RV should stay constant. It should always be the same place, so people can come back to it when they know they had a good time. But the location it drives to should be different.
Oh, so it's a drive. Well, so then that's that.
And there's a lot they can park in and stuff.
Okay, so let's now that we know the idea, now let's go through the business analysis of it. Okay.
Yep.
So, since this is your idea, I'm going to pose you the standard business plan model. So, for those of you following at home, I am a huge fan of the business canvas model, and there's actually also a social business canvas model. That's a topic for another day. The business canvas model basically outlines a business plan in very, very well formatted segments. So, it talks about what's your pricing model, how are you going to get your revenue streams, what's your multiple revenue streams that you're going to get, what's the initial cost, what's your customer relationships, who's your suppliers, who's your buyers, what's the value you're proposing. It really helps just get all the big rocks out of the way for a business plan, because if you're missing one of those big rocks, your business is going to fall apart. Because these are the most important things to consider. Starting with, Russ, what is the initial cost, and then what is the revenue stream coming out of that?
Yeah, the initial cost is obviously the RV bus, so it'll be like a party bus kind of thing.
Okay.
That's going to be the most expensive asset we own. But then you got to overhaul the inside of that to make it a bar. So there has to be a bar on one wall with probably and a place to make the drinks for the bartenders.
Okay.
So renovation of the bus and the bus are going to be the most expensive things. But you also got to hire bartenders, and it's a speakeasy, so it's not going to have a lot of customers at first. So
Okay.
that should be factored in the initial cost as well. Is the paying the bartenders with little to no revenue at the beginning.
The customer to I forget what it's called, but whenever I do these things, there's obviously an associated cost and revenue for each customer,
Yeah.
and there's also costs outside of the customers. It's really cool, and we did it for Barry Wi-Fi to do that profit model to say how many customers do I need a certain night and a certain number of nights in a week or in a month to become profitable, and then I project that out to the year, and I see what my goals are for the year.
And you have to guess intelligently at first in terms of how much the average customer is going to spend. But at some point you should have some data so you know your average customer spending, and then that makes that a little easier.
Yeah.
Projections.
The only thing that makes me uneasy about it is this relies, I think, on returning customers, loyal customers, rather than new customers. So a business out there in LA doesn't really care if it's loyal or returning. It's open to everybody.
Yeah.
But since a speakeasy is so limited in its marketing, it's really relying on return frequency. Or maybe they bring in their friends and family, but that's about it.
Yeah.
You don't get new groups of people very easily.
Yeah.
If you do, then you're not a speakeasy.
Yeah, you can't launch a giant digital marketing campaign on the thing because you don't want a line out the door. That's the point of a speakeasy. At the same time, maybe we call it a speakeasy, but you can morph it into just a good experience. I mean, you can't pack out a bus, right? Like we don't like most of the bars in LA because they get super packed and loud, but a bus would just have a certain number of seats available anyway. So it wouldn't be a big deal if you had a huge client list or if you had a huge population that wanted to go. You would only be able to take a few people. So I'm not sure if it would be that big of a deal. You might not be able to call it a speakeasy, but
So I think the value proposition, not necessarily a clear defined value proposition. It's kind of like it's a speakeasy for people who like speakeasies, right?
Yeah.
And you try to maintain your real speakeasy rather than these fakers out in LA who say there's a speakeasy, but everybody and their mother knows where they are and how to get there. So I can get the value behind that. You're kind of carving out a niche and getting loyal customers, which is not a bad thing.
I don't know. I'm less interested. I'm less interested in the actual speakeasy part, and more just making sure the environment's right. So real speakeasies are great because it's quiet and not super packed. Usually it is a little bit fun because there's an interesting way to hear about it, and it feels a little secretive. So that is an extra point to it. But it wouldn't be too much of a loss if everybody knew about this bar, but you just kept the environment inside, right?
So you can maintain quietness by having a reservation system, right?
Yeah.
You just have people reserve seats in your bar.
Yeah.
And you can easily maintain the quietness that way. And then you can mass market in that case, and you say reserve your spot, and you might be booked for months.
Yep.
Yeah, that's ideally.
Yeah, you get a spot for next May. Congratulations, 2022.
Oh, Jesus. Someone's getting ahead of themselves. Okay, so you talked about the value proposition. You talked about the sort of revenue you get and the upfront cost, the initial investment. The buyers and suppliers, essentially, obviously the buyers are the customers. There'd be interesting to talk about different revenue streams like advertising or sponsorships, but I think you said you wanted to maintain a little bit of way of sponsorship so it doesn't look like you were branded by other companies.
Yeah.
And advertising, except for certain companies, advertising is usually a minimal to almost negligible piece of a company's revenue. So except for Facebook, which obviously makes its money off of advertising. It's not going to be a huge part of your business revenue. And so that's the revenue, that's the cost. The buyers and the buyers are the customers. The suppliers, essentially suppliers in that case is pretty much just alcohol, food and things like that. Customer segments. So we already talked about customer segments, which would be the people who you don't necessarily have a customer segment by demographic or by anything like that. It's really just people who like to go to bars, right? Yeah. Anybody who goes to bars would like to go to your place. You can't just, it's not just speakeasies. That's a big mistake that a lot of people make, is when they segment their market, they say, oh, I'm only competing with speakeasies. It's not true. From a customer standpoint, you're competing with every single bar that is available to that customer. Yeah. Really, any place that's available during that time of the day, which is at night, for customers to go and entertain themselves. So that is a big thing I see when people create business plans, is they create such very defined markets that are nothing more than people defining them and narrowing their market just to make them feel better that they have less competition. When really you need to just look at yourself and say, what is the complete competition? That being said, I think it's a crappy idea. It won't ever work. Yeah. I think it will work. I think the profitability is going to be questionable on that one. I think you're going to not have too much profit. Oh no! Oh.
Just gotta make it a little brighter.
Oh god, I was lost there. I think the profitability is going to be low.
We'd have to research it more and really draw out the numbers, how much, because the employees are really a big thing.
I think it's a big thing.
You need the right experienced people to make the service great, and I don't know how much they would
I think bars make their money by having massive amount of people in their doors. Mm-hmm. So if you're limiting those to like 10 people, let's say 20 people a night, you're really hurting your profitability. So I think it's going to be lower. It's fine. That's Mason's determination. Won't work. It's a stupid idea.
Well, I am now determining.
Oh, I was gonna change the video.
Okay, we're gonna change the video.
What were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say, and now I am determining that this podcast is concluded.
No, it actually has not. We have a whole nother lesson to go through.
Oh, we do? Okay.
Yeah, we do.
What is the lesson?
The lesson is, so moving on from the business idea of the week.
Teach me, master.
Since Russ has been very courteous to present his business idea, which, for your reference, we're going to rotate. So I gave my opinion on his, and he's going to give me his opinion on mine next week. So it's not just me shitting on his ideas.
Oh yeah, you did say you had a business idea, and you didn't tell me what it was.
Yes, and that's why I'm going to wait till next week.
Oh,
ooh,
great.
Teaser. Cliffhanger. That's how you get them back going. Or get them coming back, Ross.
Absolutely.
Okay. The last subject. It is what we're going to call the lesson of the week. So the way I can see the lesson of the week is I'm going to really try to focus in on a specific topic, because I could talk hours on literally anything, any lesson, general lesson in business. But I'm going to try to keep it really focused, as focused as I can to make it in, to keep it short, to be simply put. And the lesson of the week is the importance of not doing anything else other than product and process refinement before anything in you starting a business. I've seen too many, I've read too many case studies. I haven't seen that many. But as part of my MBA, I've read way too many case studies where companies grew too large, too fast, and they actually imploded or basically collapsed on themselves because the demand that they created was much higher than their supply. And it actually hurted. Hurted? I don't know. Is that a word? It hurt their brand because people associated with them as being liars or empty promises. And that was very difficult to recover from.
Sounds kind of like Tesla.
Yeah. It very much is.
Well, they have a great product. Sometimes they don't meet. They make big expectations. And, yeah.
Time and time again, companies do that, which it's so easy to do and so tempting to do, to think when you have a good idea to just tell everybody about it. Mm-hmm. But
I'm going to anger a lot of people because there are a lot of Tesla fans out there.
No, it's fine. No one cares
I like
about
Tesla. I love Tesla.
No one cares about their opinion anyway.
Okay.
I bought a Tesla.
All that matters is our opinion, right? This is our show.
Yeah, this is our no, absolutely not. We'd love to take feedback. And what I wanted to say was, if you have any ideas for lessons, I'll take any recommendations, and I'll try to learn on it and come back to you the week after or whenever or never and teach you about it. But
Don't tell me what to do. I won't listen.
Shut up, man. Damn it. Shut up. Anyway, going back to what I was saying. product definement, and not just product definement. There's always a process to a product. There's something, even if it's completely digital and nothing physical, there's a process to delivering that value to the customer, and you really have to make sure you think it through. Now, I know that a lot of people are going to say that you can't really refine a product very well until you get it out into the market, and I can understand that, but you really have to crawl, walk, and run, and too many people run right out of the womb. So you really got to just slowly step back, and I recommend, as a good strategy for businesses, is to employ an operational test phase. So when you have a product, whatever it is, and you've defined a process, you get a couple of clients, you get a small consumer group together, very focused, very local. I recommend very local, and you just give them the product. And whether you want to charge them or not, it's completely up to you and what you can convince them to do, your customers. But it's very important that you're able to get constant feedback from your user, so that you can envelop it back into your product, because they're ultimately going to be able to tell you what is value. You may be able to think about it best you can, but them telling you what is the value is the most important part. So take that feedback, refine the product. Think about, there's something called a UX flow, which we won't get into this week, but it basically defines every step from the user's perspective that they need to do to realize your value that you're giving them. And that is something that is very, very good to map out and to think about every individual step. And my recommendation is automate it. That's the key to this, is automate as much as you can.
There's a lot of lessons.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is actually
this is one lesson. Tailor it to one lesson.
Well, I'll get the hang of it eventually. But there's actually a much bigger lesson on this, but I'm keeping it focused. Defining that user experience, or UX flow, as most people call it, and listing out every step of the process, automating as much as you can do, and when you can't, recognizing a easy way to set a trigger and alarm for that step, so that you can tell where the customer, each and every customer, is at in your process. That kind of stuff, that kind of things that you need to that needs to be done is not done by a lot of companies that just go out and market the shit out of their product before they really do that, and they're overwhelmed with joy on the demand, but then they're not going to be very happy when they can't actually meet that demand, and people start cussing them out and giving them bad star ratings. It happens all the time, and you got to be careful of that when you're a business owner. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But anyway, do you have any questions on that? What do you think from your perspective? What do you think is what you have questions on in terms of product definement, or maybe comments you have? Since we're sort of going through that now, we're in the stage of, we kind of mapped out our process, at least as best as we think we have. We've automated as much as we can, yeah. And we're still defining a little bit of the product. Yeah.
No, I think it's important to try to get it to like an initial usable process that you think is going to work, but don't spend too much time on it, because things are at first, until you get just a couple people. Start with that little bit of testing, because that's when you're going to find the unexpected challenges that come up. Like you're not going to be able to make a perfect process right away on paper before you talk to anybody. Nope. And so that's what we're trying to do now, is just get those couple clients, figure out what was unexpected, what we didn't know when we were sitting there making our written process. So don't spend too much time worrying about a perfect thing before you try to get people on board.
I was worried when we were trying to, and this is also another thing on getting that small group of people to test out your product, on ways to get them. I typically don't like trying to get those people through social media advertising, because there are ways to focus it, but there isn't necessarily a way to get just 10 people. It's much easier just to go physically to those people, which we're trying to do now and more of. It's much easier just to go to those physically. You can physically get like 10 people instead of relying on social media advertising, which may get you 100 people. You may not see zero responses, and then all of a sudden you have 100 people signing up. It's very difficult to control it.
I was a little worried about that when we first started Facebook advertising. Now I just want one.
Right.
Just please give me one.
It is hard just to get one. So I'm also going to say that it's very unlikely that's going to happen. But if you have a great product with good demand, putting it out there on social media is dangerous because it could just waterfall effect of demand.
Yeah.
It could just overwhelm you. So yeah, I think that's the lesson of the week is really emphasize on one, understanding your value. But once you've got that mapped out and you've done your business plan, and this is talking about once you have a product and a process to it, slowly get into your expansion into your market. Just start out with a couple of test clients, and I think you're really going to find that the feedback you get from that early testing is going to be invaluable. It's going to be hugely valuable to your product, and I think it's going to make you grow. And then once you've got that, then just do mass marketing, which is what our phase 2 is going to be. It's just pure, just as much as you can. Bury Wi-Fi everywhere. Bury Wi-Fi on businesses. Bury Wi-Fi on toilet paper. On Bury Wi-Fi
on toilet paper.
Toilet paper.
Wiping your ass.
Bury. Oh no, that might not be a good one. But you get my idea. Mass marketing. Once you've defined a product and the process.
I've been looking forward to that one a lot, but we're not there yet.
It's a hard one. Let me tell you, it's a hard one to get to. But once you're there, you just have to spend a whole bunch of money and then time and patience at that point.
All right.
But anyway, I think that does it for this week. I think it was a pretty good discussion. So I guess to summarize, if I may, we talked about acquisitions and mergers. We talked a little bit about our opinions on them. I think my opinion is that I'm a little scared when it comes to letting the market free reign when it comes to those kind of things. I can understand that the government regulation is a little too tight, and I can agree with that. But no government regulation makes me scared. But I think you're saying that the capitalistic market will correct for it. It gives people opportunity if people take the wrong
I'm okay with whatever gives the consumer the best experience.
Yeah.
A lot of times I think the government tries to give the consumer a better experience but fails. And the market would have done a better job in the first place. But who knows?
Yeah.
We can't test it.
Yeah, that's fine. So that's acquisition. Then we talked about client acquisition for Bury Wi-Fi. We gave you a little bit of our phasing approach, which, to summarize, phase 1 was the initial testing. Phase 2 was the mass marketing. And then phase 3 was building our own capability and the beach house in Bahamas.
Right.
Not France.
Of course. Business ideas. We had the RV Speakeasy. There's another one to come next week of Masons. Don't know what that'll be. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, it's going to be a good one. I'm actually thinking of a couple that I don't want to say on this podcast, but I might say it anyway, just because what the hell. I think they're going to be well thought out businesses that are going to be impossible for you to say anything bad on.
I disagree, but okay. And then the last thing was our final lesson, which was define your product first and test it out before you go into that large growth phase.
Yeah. All right. Well, we thank you for tuning in this week. We hope to see you back next week, and please leave any comments. We really want the feedback. We really want to learn and make this podcast better.
Thanks.
See you. Nice. Very nice. I think that was well structured.
Indeed.
I think that's why people do a lot of they wait or they do it like 3 or 4 times. Flow or that habit. Really good.